I didn't think today would be anything out of the ordinary. I grabbed my keys, slung my jacket over my shoulder, and walked out the front door of my farm, thinking 10 hours, get this done and back before sunset. Easy. But the second I stepped onto the gravel driveway, I felt it, that tiny nagging sense that something was off. You know that feeling when a dog growls at nothing? Yeah, that. The farm looked normal at first. Chickens clucked, the windmill creaked in the breeze, and my dog Max was sprawled in the sun like he owned the place, which, let's be honest, he probably does. But then I noticed it, a car parked a little too close to the fence, just one, and it wasn't anyone I knew. I squinted, and sure enough, the little logo on the door said it all, HOA. I shrugged, maybe they're just checking on something. I tried to convince myself, but deep down I knew better. They had been on my back for months, fines for improper landscaping, warnings about unauthorized structures, and the personal favorite, a lecture on how my mailbox was not aesthetically pleasing. And now one of their cars was just watching, waiting. I shook it off. Focus on your errands, ignore them, I muttered, climbing into my truck. But as I backed out, the gravel crunched under my tires like a warning. And Max, he growled, definitely not nothing. The drive away was quiet, too quiet. Usually the birds chatter at this hour, but today it felt like someone hit mute. I checked my mirrors every few seconds, half expecting to see that HOA SUV following me. I mean, who even does that? I laughed nervously at the thought, but my hands tightened around the steering wheel. Something told me this wasn't just another petty HOA visit. 10 hours, that's all I needed. 10 hours away from my farm. Maybe I could get some peace, run my errands, grab lunch without anyone telling me I was breaking some obscure rule about grass height. I had no idea that those 10 hours would be the most nerve-wracking of my life. I stopped at the gas station down the road, filled up the tank, and tried to shake the feeling. I even joked to the cashier, if anyone from the HOA calls, tell them I'm busy being a responsible adult. She laughed, but I could barely smile. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a message from one of the HOA members. We're just checking in, make sure everything is as it should be. Great, that's exactly what I didn't want. Checking in was code for we're about to make your day miserable. I threw the phone on the passenger seat and tried to focus on the road. Halfway through my errands, I couldn't shake it. Every honk, every passing truck made me jump. I kept picturing that SUV parked at my farm with the HOA team sitting inside like a squad waiting for me to return. And call me paranoid, but I felt like they were laughing, not literally, but the kind of smirk you feel in the air when someone's plotting against you. By the time I got to my last stop, a small hardware store, I was already rehearsing my comeback lines in my head. Yes, Mr. Jenkins, the mailbox is totally unapproved. According to your mysterious, ever-changing standards, what's that? I can't have chickens roaming freely. Let me check my rulebook. I left the store with my supplies, trying to laugh it off, trying to tell myself I was overthinking it. But the unease followed me like a shadow, creeping over my shoulders. Every mile closer to my farm made my stomach tighten. I hadn't seen anything yet, hadn't been confronted, but I could already feel it coming. And I was right, I just didn't know how bad it was going to be. Because that SUV, parked quietly at the edge of my property, wasn't waiting for a casual visit. They weren't there to measure grass or lecture me about fences. They were waiting, and I was driving straight into it, completely unaware. I took a deep breath and muttered, well, here goes nothing. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter, and I didn't notice how Max had started growling in the passenger seat. Something tells me he knew exactly what was about to happen. The closer I got to the farm, the heavier the air felt. It's hard to explain, but it wasn't just the smell of dirt and livestock, it was tense. Like the place itself was holding its breath, waiting for something bad to happen. My stomach twisted into knots, and for the first time in years, I considered taking a shortcut through a dirt road I didn't even like just to avoid seeing the front of the farm. But I couldn't, I had to go back, so I gripped the steering wheel tighter, muttering, it's fine, it's probably nothing, just a car parked weirdly, maybe a raccoon is in the driveway, yeah, that's it. I drove up the long gravel path, trying to make everything look casual, even though every instinct screamed, stop, turn around. And then I saw it, the SUV. The same one I had noticed earlier, sitting right where it shouldn't be, doors closed, engine off. The windows reflected the sun so I couldn't see inside, but I knew who it was. I could almost feel the HOA's smug little smiles radiating off the glass. I slowed down, pretending to check the gravel, but my eyes never left that vehicle. And then I noticed something even worse. Tire tracks, fresh ones, leading straight to the barn, my sanctuary. I slammed on the brakes, not too hard to draw attention, but enough for Max to leap forward, barking like his life depended on it. And he was right, something was wrong, very wrong. The closer I got, the more signs of intrusion I noticed. The fence gate I always keep locked, wide open, my tools were scattered in the yard, some knocked over, And there near the chicken coop I saw footprints, not animal prints, human, large, purposeful, and taunting. Whoever had been here wanted me to know they were there. I froze for a moment, my mind raced. Okay, don't panic, maybe it's just the neighbors checking for I don't know rule compliance, yeah, totally normal. But even as I tried to convince myself, my gut tightened. I've been around trouble before, marines, storms, even a stray bull on the loose. Nothing felt like this was deliberate. I got out of the truck slowly, trying to make minimal noise. Every step crunching against gravel sounded like a cannon shot in my ears. Max circled my legs, growling low, almost warning me to run back. I ignored him, squaring my shoulders. No, I'm not going to let them scare me, not today. And then I saw them, two men in HOA inspector vests standing casually near the barn, not casual at all. The way they held themselves, the way their eyes flicked toward me like predators who already knew their prey was coming. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a random visit, they had planned this. An ambush, and I was right in the middle of it. I froze, and then I remembered every petty fight I'd ever had with the HOA, every warning letter, every absurd fine, every smug phone call. This was the culmination of all that nonsense, and now it was personal. I tried to step back, but one of them noticed and raised an eyebrow. That single movement told me everything I needed to know. They were waiting for me, trapped. I glanced around looking for my phone. I needed backup, anyone to get me out of this without bloodshed, but my mind was racing too fast to think clearly, and just as I reached for my pocket, I heard a rustle from the trees behind the barn, not the wind, something else, something moving. I took a deep breath, my heart was hammering in my chest, sweat prickled my forehead, and I thought, this is it, they're going to confront me or worse, and I am completely alone. Max growled again, louder this time, almost as if he knew exactly what was coming. I didn't look at him. I couldn't. My eyes were locked on the HOA members, their smirks growing as they realized I had seen them. And in that moment, I understood one thing with crystal clarity. This wasn't a simple dispute anymore. This wasn't a letter in the mailbox or a warning about grass height. This was war. And I wasn't ready for it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Two men standing there like they owned the place, my sanctuary, my farm, and behind them in the shadows of the barn, I noticed more movement, another person then another. Suddenly, what I thought was just a routine inspection turned into a full-blown ambush. My stomach dropped and my brain started firing off a million thoughts at once. How did they know I'd be gone for exactly 10 hours? Who tipped them off? And why the barn? It felt like a bad action movie, only I wasn't prepared and there was no director yelling, "Cut." I froze. I wanted to run, but the gravel driveway seemed miles away, and the closer I got to my truck, the more obvious it would be that I was scared. Max circled my legs, growling like he was ready to take them down himself. I patted his head nervously. "Not yet, boy, not yet." One of the HOA men stepped forward. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was that kind of smirk that makes your skin crawl, like he knew he had all the power in the world and you had none. "Afternoon," he said, voice annoyingly calm. "We were just checking on the property, making sure everything's in compliance." Compliance, that word made me laugh nervously, a short, harsh bark of disbelief. "Oh, really?" I said. "And you do that by standing in my driveway with backup?" He tilted his head. "We're just doing our job." I could see the other HOA members slowly stepping closer, blocking part of the path to the barn. Another figure peeked from behind the barn door, watching me, sizing me up. My heart raced. I realized then they weren't here to measure anything or lecture me about my mailbox. They were here to intimidate me, to make me freeze, to make me feel powerless. I clenched my fists. "No way, not today." I tried to play it cool, walking slowly toward them. "You know," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "this really isn't necessary. I've been careful about following the rules. I even watered the grass this morning." The smirk didn't leave his face. He stepped slightly closer. "Rules are rules," he said, voice low now, almost threatening. My stomach twisted. I realized I wasn't just outnumbered, I was trapped. They had strategically positioned themselves so I couldn't get to the barn without passing each one of them. My truck, no escape, even Max's barking wasn't helping. I backed up a step, trying to keep calm. My mind raced. Think, what can I do? But my eyes kept darting around, looking for something, anything, a tool, a hiding spot, a way to buy time. That's when it hit me. I wasn't thinking straight because I was alone, completely alone. If this escalated, I didn't have the muscle to stop it. I needed backup. Someone who could handle a situation like this. Someone who could make these HOA bullies realize they had bitten off more than they could chew. And then I remembered my friend, a Marine. Calm, precise, experienced, the kind of person who walks into a situation like this and suddenly everything changes. I needed him here. But in the meantime, I had to keep them talking, keep them distracted. I stepped forward, trying to look casual, or at least casual enough to fool myself. You know, I said, forcing a chuckle, I didn't expect the HOA to get tactical. One of them raised an eyebrow. Tactical, he asked. Yes, tactical, I said, smiling through clenched teeth. I mean, look at you guys, strategically positioned, watching everything, very professional. They exchanged glances. That was my small victory. I knew I'd caught their attention and, more importantly, planted a seed of doubt. Maybe they thought I was panicking, but really I was buying time. Every second felt like an hour. Every footstep they made, every subtle movement made my heart jump. I could feel the tension in the air, heavy, suffocating. This wasn't just a dispute anymore. This was a battle of wills, and the battlefield was my own farm. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had to make it through these next few minutes. Because I knew as long as I stayed calm, as long as I stayed alive, help was coming. And I had a plan. I knew I couldn't handle this alone. Not with the HOA bullies spread across my driveway like they were running some kind of military drill. I took a step back, heart pounding, and fumbled for my phone. My fingers felt like they were moving through molasses as I unlocked it, my eyes never leaving the strategically positioned inspectors. Okay, don't panic, just call for backups. I tapped my contact list and found him, my Marine friend, calm under fire, sharp as a tack, someone who had handled way worse than a few HOA tyrants. I hit call, trying to sound casual while whispering under my breath, please answer, please answer. He picked up on the first ring. Hey, he said, voice low, calm, what's up? I took a deep breath, trying to sound normal, though I knew it was hopeless. Hey, so remember how I said the HOA has been getting ridiculous? Yeah, they've taken it up a notch. There was a pause. Explain. I glanced at the driveway. They were moving slightly now, adjusting positions like hawks circling prey. I could feel Max growling low, warning me to run, but running wasn't an option. They've set up an ambush at the farm. They're blocking the barn. There's at least 3 of them. They look organized. Another pause, then his calm, almost unnerving tone. Stay put, don't escalate, I'll be there soon. Soon, I whispered under my breath. I glanced at the men again, their eyes darting in my direction, confidence oozing off them in waves. They weren't suspicious yet, but they were getting ready, and I was still standing there, holding nothing but my phone. I tried to keep my breathing steady, but it wasn't working. Every footstep on the gravel sounded like a gunshot. Every rustle of leaves in the distance made me jump. I even considered moving the truck just a little to make it seem like I wasn't trapped, but that would have put me closer to them. I whispered to Max, stay calm, boy, help's on the way. He whined like he knew I was bluffing, but I was, not really. One of the HOA men shifted closer. My stomach dropped. They were testing me, trying to see if I'd flinch first. I swallowed hard and tried to act casual, though my hand never left the phone. Beautiful day, isn't it? I said, forcing a smile. They didn't answer, of course they didn't, that was the whole point. Silence, tension, a quiet battle of wills. I could feel my pulse in my temples. My eyes flicked to the trees at the edge of the property, imagining my Marine friend stepping out at any second, walking straight into this ridiculous situation like he owned the place, which, honestly, he probably would. Minutes stretched into eternity. The HOA men whispered to each other now, glances shooting in my direction. I had no idea what they were saying, but the way they moved, careful, slow, deliberate, told me one thing: they knew I was nervous. They were enjoying it. I muttered to myself, more for sanity than anything else, come on, hurry. Then I heard it, the unmistakable sound of boots on gravel, slow, measured, heavy. My heart jumped. I held my breath, glancing over my shoulder, and there he was. Calm, steady, walking toward the driveway with that Marine aura that makes you feel like nothing in the world could go wrong as long as he's around. The HOA men froze mid-step. I swear I could see the confusion in their eyes, like suddenly they realized they were no longer in charge. The air shifted. The confidence, the smug little smirks, gone. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I wanted to run to him, hug him, and apologize for dragging him into this ridiculous mess. But I didn't, not yet. I had to let him work his magic. Max barked, excitement finally breaking through his fear. I could feel the tension cracking, just a little. But I also knew the next few minutes were going to be critical. Because now the game had changed. They weren't facing just me anymore. He walked onto the gravel path like he owned the place. Calm, deliberate, each step measured. the kind of presence that makes everyone around him pause without a word. And just like that, the entire energy of my farm shifted. The air was thick with tension, and suddenly the HOA men weren't so confident anymore. I could see them exchanging glances, trying to look casual but failing miserably. Their smirks had vanished. Now they were nervous, really nervous. I'd never seen anyone get quiet so fast before. My marine friend didn't even need to say a word, his presence alone said everything. I whispered to Max, "That's him, that's our guy." The dog barked softly, tail wagging cautiously, like even he could feel the difference. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my racing heart. Hey," I said to my marine friend, my voice cracking slightly, "glad you could, drop by." He glanced at me calm and steady, like I'd just said something mundane about the weather. "What's going on?" His tone didn't need urgency, it already carried authority. I took a step back, gesturing subtly toward the HOA men. "Well, they're here and they're blocking the barn and doing their thing." I gestured vaguely, hoping he'd get it. He nodded, eyes scanning the ambush like a hawk. Then he looked at me and said deadpan, "Did you try talking to them?" I laughed nervously. Yes, it didn't work, obviously. He didn't flinch, he just walked a few steps closer to the HOA men, and I swear you could see the shift in their posture. Shoulders stiffened, hands tightened near tool belts, their bravado evaporated. They realized they were no longer in control. One of them cleared his throat. Sir, we were just..." My marine friend didn't answer. He didn't need to. His stare alone was enough to make them rethink everything they'd planned for the past 10 hours. It was like watching a living, breathing warning sign, the kind that says, "You are about to make a very big mistake." I tried to act casual, standing slightly behind him, tugging at my jacket, trying to look nonchalant, but inside I was panicking a little. This was about to get intense. Then, as if on cue, one of the HOA men tried to step forward, probably thinking he could intimidate my friend. Big mistake. My marine friend tilted his head just slightly, no words, no movement, just that cold, precise look, and the man froze. I bit my lip to keep from laughing. It was absurd, almost cartoonish how fast the power dynamic shifted, and yet it was terrifying to watch. Those guys had clearly never faced anyone like this before. I whispered under my breath, partly to Max, partly to myself, "Yeah, you don't even know what you're in for." The Marine finally spoke, his voice low and calm, but cutting through the tension like a knife. "Step back, everyone." The HOA men hesitated. One of them started muttering something about rules and inspections. My Marine friend didn't flinch. He just kept his eyes on them, and they slowly realized their bluster meant nothing here, nothing. I could feel the suspense building like a storm ready to break. My chest tightened, my hands trembled slightly, but I also couldn't help feeling a surge of relief. Someone was finally in charge, someone who could handle these people. Max barked again, louder this time, energized by the shift. I smiled weakly, glancing at my friend. "Wow, you really do just walk in and everyone freezes." He gave me a look that said, "Focus, this isn't over." And he was right, because even as the HOA men shrank back, whispering amongst themselves, I could feel the tension spike higher. This wasn't just about a driveway or a barn anymore. It was about control, and my marine friend was about to show them exactly who had it. I held my breath, every second stretched out. The quiet was deafening. I could see each of their tiny, nervous movements. One wrong step, one word, and the situation could explode. I gripped the gravel under my boots and whispered almost to myself, "Okay, let's see how this plays out." The air between us was electric. I could feel it pressing down, heavy and suffocating like the calm before a storm. My marine friend stood just a few steps from the HOA men, calm and unmoving, while I hovered a few feet behind, trying to act like I wasn't about to lose it entirely. Max paced nervously beside me, growling low, warning them. I swear, if looks could kill, the HOA men were already 6 feet under. Their earlier confidence had evaporated. Every slight movement I made, every blink, seemed to make them more nervous. My marine friend didn't say much, didn't need to. His presence alone said everything. "You have no idea who you're messing with." One of the men tried to step forward like he could somehow intimidate him. Big mistake. My marine friend's eyes flicked to him, just a subtle tilt of the head, but it was enough. The man froze. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, unsure whether to move, speak, or just vanish entirely. I could barely breathe, adrenaline surging through me. I whispered to Max, "This is insane, just stay calm." Max whined but stayed close, as if he knew he couldn't do anything without me freaking out. Then one of them tried to bluff. We're just doing our jobs," he said, voice slightly shaky now, trying to sound confident. My marine friend didn't answer, he didn't even move, and suddenly the quiet was deafening. I could hear the gravel crunch under their own boots as they shifted nervously. Their whispers to each other were almost inaudible, but their panic was obvious. They were realizing their plan had failed before it had even started. I stepped slightly forward, trying to sound casual, even though my hands were shaking. "You know, it's funny," I said. "I thought HOA disputes were just annoying letters and petty fines. I didn't think I'd come home to this." The words hung in the air. I could see one of them swallow hard. That subtle human reaction, fear mixed with disbelief, gave me a tiny thrill of relief. It wasn't over, but at least we had an advantage now. My marine friend finally spoke, his voice low and deliberate. "Back up, all of you." It wasn't a request, it was a command, and they knew it. I could see the hesitation in their bodies. One of them even raised his hands slightly, like a gesture of surrender without saying it out loud. One HOA member tried to argue, "This isn't." He didn't get to finish. A single look from my friend shut him down immediately. I could see the realization in their eyes. They had absolutely no control here. None. I could feel my pulse racing. I wanted to laugh, partly out of relief, partly out of disbelief. These guys planned an ambush, and it collapsed in under 2 minutes. Max barked again, louder this time, as if cheering us on. I laughed nervously. "Yeah, Max, you get it." The standoff continued, seconds stretching into minutes. I could see the mental calculations running through the HOA men's heads. Should we fight, run, call for backup? The truth was none of that mattered. They were outmatched, outclassed, and frankly, completely out of their depth. Then my marine friend took a single step forward. Slowly, calculated, purposeful. It was like watching a predator assert dominance without ever lifting a claw. The HOA members shuffled back, instinctively giving him space. I whispered to myself, "Wow, he doesn't even need words." One of the men finally muttered something under his breath, probably hoping I wouldn't hear it. I caught it anyway. "We shouldn't have done this." That was it, the moment of clarity. Their plan, their so-called ambush, their confidence all evaporated in an instant. I felt a rush of adrenaline and relief, knowing we had turned the tide without a single blow being struck. I looked at my marine friend, awestruck. He didn't smile, he didn't celebrate. He just stood there calm and steady, making sure the HOA men understood they had lost, completely, utterly, and publicly. And in that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about me or the farm or petty HOA rules. This was about showing bullies that some lines aren't meant to be crossed, and today we drew that line in bold, permanent ink. I couldn't believe how fast the shift had happened. 10 minutes ago, these guys were smug, confident, thinking they had me trapped. Now, they were scrambling, shuffling back, muttering under their breath, glancing nervously at each other like a pack of cornered raccoons. I stood a few steps behind my marine friend, my hands still gripping the gravel, heart pounding in my chest. Max circled at my feet, tail high, clearly enjoying the sudden turn of events. I laughed nervously, trying not to sound too triumphant. Okay, we're good. But my marine friend didn't move. He simply stood there calm and commanding, letting the panic settle in fully for the HOA. One of them even glanced toward the barn, probably hoping reinforcements were coming. Nope, just us, and they knew it. "Back up slowly, everyone." His voice was steady, unshakable. It didn't even sound angry, but it carried a weight that made my teeth clench. That single command had the men stepping backward as if some invisible force was pushing them. I couldn't help myself. I muttered under my breath, more to Max than anyone else. "Yeah, this is what happens when you mess with the wrong farm." One of the HOA guys tried to bluff, raising his voice. "We're just doing our jobs, you can't." And then he stopped, mid-sentence. One look from my friend and the words died in his throat. The tension in the air was almost tangible. I swear I could feel the collective fear radiating off them, thick enough to taste. I laughed quietly, incredulous at how fast the situation had turned. From ambush to retreat in under 15 minutes, 10 hours of planning all for nothing, all for my little farm, all for me. And yet I could sense it wasn't over. Oh no, even as they shuffled back, giving ground, whispering hurriedly to each other, I could feel the plotting starting again. HOA types never give up that easily, they just retreat to regroup. I glanced at my marine friend, who finally relaxed his stance just slightly, eyes scanning every corner of the property, making sure there were no surprises. He gave me the smallest nod, and I could finally let out a shaky breath. I laughed again, louder this time. Relief, adrenaline, and sheer disbelief all tangled together. "Max," I said, "we survived the HOA." He barked, wagged his tail, clearly agreeing with me. But the comedy of it didn't fully hit until one of them tried to regain some dignity. We'll be back," he muttered, voice quivering slightly, stepping toward the SUV like he was trying to make a graceful exit. Spoiler alert, there's no graceful exit when you've been outsmarted by a farm owner and a Marine. The other members exchanged panicked glances, then finally started retreating. Slowly, carefully, like they were sneaking out of a crime scene they'd just realized was way above their pay grade. I could feel my chest loosen, tension easing just enough for me to realize something hilarious. These guys came here thinking they were big shots, only to be reduced to a quivering mess by one person and a dog. My Marine friend didn't even touch them, didn't raise his voice, just presence, pure intimidation. I shook my head, laughing quietly. I can't believe this, they actually thought they could pull an ambush. Max barked as if laughing along with me. And just like that, the HOA men were gone. The driveway was empty, the barn was mine, and the sun was starting to dip toward the horizon. The calm after the storm settled over the farm, and for the first time that day, I could actually breathe. I glanced at my Marine friend. He gave me a slight smile, just the tiniest hint, before turning back to survey the property one last time. "They'll think twice next time," he said, voice calm but carrying a quiet authority that made me grin. I let out a laugh, part relief, part exhaustion. Yeah, they'll think twice, or maybe 10 times. Even as we walked back toward the house, I couldn't stop thinking about the absurdity of it all. An ambush, meticulously planned, foiled in minutes by one calm Marine and my little dog. I felt victorious, but also slightly humbled. Not everyone has someone like that to call in an emergency. But I also knew the HOA wasn't done. Oh no, they would regroup, they would plot, and probably come back with some new nonsense. And honestly, I was kind of looking forward to it. Because now we were ready. The driveway was quiet now, almost eerily so. The gravel under my boots felt different, peaceful, victorious, like it had absorbed all the tension from the last few hours. Max padded beside me, tail high, occasionally glancing at me as if saying, "We did it, we survived." I laughed, the sound strange to my own ears after the chaos. I leaned against the truck, still trying to let my racing heart settle. My Marine friend stood nearby, calm as ever, scanning the farm one last time. "You okay?" he asked, voice steady, like he wasn't even breathing hard. I nodded, exhaling slowly. Yeah, I think so, wow." I gestured vaguely at the driveway. "They came here thinking they could ambush me, and they left like scared little kids." He smirked faintly, "That's how it works." I couldn't help but chuckle. "I guess I should thank you, or maybe hire you permanently as my HOA deterrent," Max barked as if agreeing. We started walking toward the barn, surveying the place. Everything was intact, thankfully. A few tools knocked over, a tiny bit of mud tracked in from whoever had been sneaking around, but nothing major. And yet the memory of their smug faces, the ones they had worn so confidently just hours ago, still made me laugh quietly to myself. I shook my head. I can't believe they thought they could pull that off, a full ambush at my farm against one person and a dog. Max wagged his tail, clearly sharing in my amusement. The Marine glanced at me, serious for a moment. "They're not gone for good," he said. "They'll think about this, they'll plan their next move." I raised an eyebrow, and "Next time?" His smirk was just the slightest tilt of the lips. "Next time you'll be ready, and so will I." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and anticipation. That's the thing about dealing with the HOA, or really anyone who thinks they can bully you. You survive one battle, and suddenly you're thinking about the next. You're sharper, smarter, and slightly more paranoid. We walked back toward the house, the sun dipping low over the horizon. The farm looked peaceful again, like nothing had happened. Chickens clucked lazily, Max wandered off to chase a butterfly, and I could hear the distant hum of the windmill turning in the breeze. I glanced back at the driveway one last time. Empty, quiet, perfect. I laughed softly, shaking my head in disbelief. I swear, if someone had told me this morning I'd be facing an HOA ambush and surviving it thanks to a Marine, I'd have told them they were insane. He chuckled, the sound low and steady, like a grounding force in the midst of the absurdity. Insane, maybe, but it worked. I leaned against the barn door, letting the tension drain from my shoulders. My mind replayed the events, the SUV parked where it shouldn't have been, the strategically placed inspectors, their smug grins dissolving under my friend's gaze, the shift in the energy of the farm. Every moment was vivid, surreal, and unforgettable. And yet, through it all, there was humor. The sheer ridiculousness of the situation made me laugh out loud. Small victories in life are often the funniest. Who ambushes a farmer anyway? Seriously. I looked at Max, who trotted over and nudged my hand with his nose. Yeah, buddy, I said, patting his head, we made it. Then my marine friend clapped me lightly on the shoulder. Next time, call me before things get this far. I nodded, smiling wryly. Next time, I'll bring popcorn, and maybe some lemonade for them too. Let's see how they like being on the losing side of a farm ambush. We laughed. It was good, cathartic laughter, the kind that comes after surviving something absurd and dangerous. And for a moment, just a brief moment, everything felt normal again. But I knew in the back of my mind that the HOA was already plotting their next ridiculous move. And honestly, I didn't mind, because this time I wasn't alone, and Max wasn't alone, and the farm would always be ready. I took a final look around. Sunset casting golden light across the fields, the barn, the driveway, a perfect scene after chaos, and I smiled. This farm, I thought, my farm, my rules, and a marine friend, unstoppable. Every HOA has a story on HOA headaches. You'll hear the ones they tried to bury. Subscribe today.